Guys, this is me. You are watching my YouTube channel. Even if the United States of America emerges as an independent country after 1776 and recognized in 1783, the history of these lands is deeper than the US years ago. The first people settled in American continent, it is not exactly known how the Native Americans were first settled in these territories. But the theory says that the people migrate from Eurasia starting the 30,000 years ago across the Beringia bridge known as Beringia. This is connected to Siberia and North America during the Icy Age. This migration continued until 10,000 years ago at the time of the glacial period ended and the land of the bridge became submerged by the rising of the ocean before the history of the old inhabitants were called the Poly-Americans. And the time they migrated even the deeper Americas and they formed tribes and nations they created interesting civilization developing their own culture and culture that exists there. We can mention Athena culture, Archaeos culture and Gaulish culture. But in other parts of today, the United States has interesting and different history sparking about heroic. This land wasn't inhabited until the 1st century AD. Native development started with the settlement of the Polynesian people between the 1st and 10th centuries. Starting the 15th century, the European colonization began in 1492. The Spanish expedition headed by the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus sailed west to find a new trade route to the far east, but landed in what came to be known as Europe as a New World. After this event, the next decades, more and more ships sailed with the East Indies. More ships sailed west to the established colony from the trade posts, and Spaniards began the building their American empire using islands such as Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Hispaniola. As a basis, they expanded hugely. France founded colonies in eastern North America and a number of the Caribbean islands and small coastal parts of South America. Portugal colonized Brazil and eastern South coast was settled primarily by the English colonists in 17th century. Along with such smaller number of the Dutch and the Swedes, the first successful English colonies, Jamestown, was established in 1607. On the Jamestown River, the Virginia as a new wave settler arrived in late 17th century and established commercial agriculture based on the tobacco, even though there was some conflict between the Native Americans and English settlers. The colony managed to expand pretty fast, and more colonies had. Each of the 13 American colonies had slightly different governmental structure, and the fact of the colonies were ruled by the governor appointed from London. This government controlled administration and relied upon the local elected legislature, the vote taxes, and makes law. By the 18th century, and the American colonies were growing very rapidly. As a result of the low death rates, along with the ample supplies of land and food, attracted the handful of immigrants. The tobacco and rice plantation imported American slaves from the labor from the British colonies in the West Indies by the 17th centuries. African slaves comprised a fifth of the American population, and the question of the independence from the Britain did not rise as long as colonies needed British military support against the French and Spanish power. The French and Indian War was an event created by the political development on the colonies. It was part of the larger 70 Years' War. Britain beat French forces and France War, lost their colonies and territories in the Canada and Oceania. The war was costly, and Britain needed money from the British Parliament. Passed a stand in 1765 imposing act on the colony without going through the colonial legislature. Issue was drawn. Did the Parliament have this right? Take the tax American who were not represented in the current taxation. Without representation, colonists refused to pay taxes as tension. 1770s, the Boston Tea Party in 1773 was marked as the start of the revolution happened in the town of Boston. to the protest against the new tax on the parliament quickly responded, and the next years of the stripping after the historic right of the self-government putting under the army rule, which sparked outrage and resistance in all 13 colonies. Leaders from all 13 colonies Congress to coordinate their resistance. The Congress called boycott the British grievances and petitioned the king for the redress and those grievances. It was none about their independence at the defined. This appeal had no effect, and so Second Constitutional Congress was created in 1775 in order to organize the defense of the colonies against the British Army and 17th British rule in 1775 and proclaimed their independence in 1773. As United States American Revolutionary War in 1775 to 1783, the Americans captured the British Invasion Army and Northeast and encouraged the French to make the military alliance with the United States of America, France, brought and Spain and the Netherlands, was thus balancing the military naval forces on each of the sides. Which has no allies. General George Washington was an excellent organizer and administrator who worked successfully with the Congress in the states of the governors, selecting and monitoring his senior officers, supporting the training his troops, and maintaining an idealistic Republican army. American Revolution was success at the Peace of Paris in 1783. Their independence was organized, and even those former colonies gained more than expected. The expansion American lands west and Appalachian Mountains deal was made by the United States President John Jefferson in 1830. He bought the Louisiana Territory from the France. Initial diplomats sent to France were allowed to pay up the $10 million order to buy the New Orleans. Is possible the West Bank of the permission. Louisiana Territory would be sold. President approved the deal, and the U.S. doubled its size in the middle of the 19th century. Some seasons were happening, and the Texas in the joining the Union in 1845. And after the war against post-war Mexican Empire, the United States will take important land and expand even further in 1871. After the Abraham Lincoln was elected, some states from the South and the Confederation attacked and raised South a revolt, and was happening due to the controversy of black people. In 1860, the United States was led by Abraham Lincoln, supporting the beginning the slavery in all territories. War broke out in April 1861, and the secessionist forces attacked for the shelter in South Carolina. After 4 years of the war, the Union achieved its victory, and Confederates were defeated. National unity was slowly reported. The national government expanding the power in 19th century was a period of economic expansion. More and more industry were created, and also accent was put on the infrastructure. In 1898, an American-Spanish war is happening. Americans were winning in the short term of the battle. And as the Treaty of Paris, U.S. is getting the Philippines, Puerto Rico, and Guam at the beginning of the 20th century. The World War first started even though the United States was neutral due to the German attacks on the American ships and due to their intentions to make Mexico join against the U.S. The American joined allies. After this event, economic was growing and all was very good until the Great Depression, which started in 1929. This event shocked the world and created the base on the base which the Second World War started. Second World War will start. United States joined allies after being attacked the Pearl Harbor on December 17, 1941. By the Japanese Empire. American fought and the distance war in Europe Pacific and provided supplies to the Soviet Union. armored cars, motorized equipment, and foods. Winning the battle in Pacific, getting closer to the Japanese mainland, and after D-Day, Europe in 1944, and American managed to have a great impact to help lots on Allied side. The war ended in 1945. Germany capitulated in May and Japan in September after the two nuclear bombs dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The United States, Soviet Union emerged as their rival superpowers and aftermath of the World War II. This was the period known as the Cold War, and two countries confronted each other indirectly in their arms race proxy wars across the world, including the Korean and Vietnam wars, and propaganda campaigns. Purpose of this war is to stop spread the exam in 1960s, where the civil rights movement started rights and voting, the freedom and movement of African Americans and other countries, and the Cold War ended with the collapse of the Soviet Union, and after the United States has been focusing on the modern conflicts in the Middle East and beginning in the 21st century, saw the September 11th attacks and carried out by Al-Qaeda in 2001, which was later followed by the wars in Iraq and in Afghanistan in 2008, and the United States had its worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. So this was a video. This video is very interesting, so I think it's very important for information for you. So I'm Lucas, you're new to my channel, so please subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to get notification of the latest videos, because I'm bringing here latest and fun topics, these videos for you right now. So don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching.